Girl at the Beach was a pixel art commission I made for my friend back in 2022 for his girlfriend. At the time, they've been dating for a few years and I was very honored to receive a request to make art for her. My friend's prompt was very specific, which I like because it takes some of the decision making off of me when it comes to designing the piece and makes it a lot faster to complete. He wanted me to draw his girlfriend wearing a cream-colored turtleneck, a red cardigan with a hood, a pair of black leggings, and a pair of brown ankle-high leather boots that have rose and leaf designs. Her black hair has to be in a braid, and she has to have a mole under her right eye. As for the background, he wants her to be at the beach during the sunset. He actually gave me a very helpful draft. It may not have all of the details down to a T, but it has enough information for me to go off of to create the image more efficiently than doing everything from scratch. It actually eliminates the need for me to make a pencil draft since I'm more used to doing it that way before I move on to doing a rough sketch in Aseprite. After tracing over his draft, I added the shore, the setting sun, clouds, some palm trees, and blades of grass to the background to complete the scene. At this stage, I'm not too concerned with the little details. The most important part to me is to get the layout and composition right. One really important tip I could give you when it comes to drawing a scene like this digitally is to keep elements of the artwork in separate layers. That way you can move them around and adjust their positions until you're happy with how it looks. It also makes it easier to make revisions if the client requests for it. After I got the layout and colors down, I showed it to my client so he could tell me if there are any changes he'd want me to apply. Once he gave me the okay, I went ahead and started adding more details to the artwork, starting with the background. Just like before, I was more concerned with the general look of the whole picture, so I didn't refine all of the details just yet. I just added little bits and pieces of what I feel the scene needed to make it feel more complete in terms of color and texture. I used the airbrush tool for the sand and made sure to make the wet part close to the water, which is called the beach face, a lot darker than the rest of the shore. I added several hues and shades of color to the water and clouds to create the gradient of the sunset. I didn't want the gradient to look too smooth, so I made sure to make the warm, bright colors as distinct from one another as they can be, making the sun pop out. But when it came to the cool purple colors, I made it a bit more subdued so that it wouldn't take attention away from the main focal point of the background, which is the setting sun. I also added a silhouette of a palm tree and some blades of grass so that the right side of the background didn't look so bare. It helped balance out the composition as a whole. And now that I'm happy with that, it's time for the next phase, which is refining the details, starting with the seafoam and waves. It helped me a lot to look at what water looks like as it hits the shore and when it retreats back to the sea. It actually reminds me a lot of how the foam of fizzy drinks like sodas behave. There are these white or light colored foam and bubbles that dissolve back into the water, forming this pattern that resembles an uneven net. Of course, as artists, it's up to us how we decide to interpret this effect into our work. It doesn't have to be so realistic, it just needs to imitate or give an impression of that effect. In my case, I just use a thicker brush to make the thickest foams where the water and the shore meets, then used a 1 pixel brush along with my airbrush to spread it to the back. As for the waves, I just used 2 colors to draw them over the gradient I made, making sure that the waves of the back is a lot darker so that they won't take attention away from the sun. And may seem like I scrawled on it and didn't give much thought to it because that's exactly what happened. Sometimes you just don't need to think much about it because once you take a step back and zoom out of the image, it does what it needs to do. You get the impression of waves even when they're not drawn in excruciating detail. I personally feel that that's a skill that a lot of artists can benefit from, especially if they're going for a stylized or simple art style. For the silhouette of the palm tree, I kept it in one plain color with just a little detail for the leaves, because I didn't want it to take away from the focal points of the piece, which is the girl and the sunset. It has enough contrast for you to know what it is, but it isn't so jarring that it feels out of place. Content with the background, I started adding more details to the girl. I covered the background with a solid gray color temporarily so that I don't get distracted with everything that's happening behind her. I flipped her horizontally just so I can catch any kind of deformities that I might have missed while sketching her out for the first time as I refined the details. I brought back the background so that I could figure out what colors to use for the highlights and where to put them. I did 2 shades for highlights to really emphasize the light coming from the sunset behind her. For this style, it's not really necessary to draw each and every detail of the hair for it to feel like hair. Simply drawing a few strands can imply the texture of it. The same goes for the clothes. The wrinkles do not need to be drawn outright all the time. The shape and texture can just be implied by the way you shade it. For her face, I wanted to keep the cat-like smile that my client drew, but I also wanted to give her lips and make her more mature looking. So I drew the lips in the shape of a playful smirk to achieve it. For the shoes, I made sure to refine the main shape of the boots first before adding the details of the rose petals and leaves. And that's how I made Girl at the Beach. Initially, I was not gonna make this video with commentary again since I already posted an art time-lapse with music for this piece, but I just had a couple of tips that I wanted to share when it came to making it, and a lot of people seem to like it when I talk about the process. Have you ever tried drawing the beach before? If not, what kind of sceneries do you prefer to draw? Or are you the type of person who prefers drawing characters? Let me know in the comments. For now, this has been CheesyPaninie with extra ham and cheese, and I'll see you guys later. Take it easy and stay cheesy.